Hey guys, welcome to The Sophisticated Scoundrel. You know, there are a lot of guys out there who, instead of dealing with their own personal issues, they use coping mechanisms. And when I say coping mechanism, I'm talking about booze, I'm talking about drugs, I'm talking about gambling, shopping, porn. Even chasing girls is a major coping mechanism that I see so many guys do. They are constantly chasing after girls, trying to get numbers or hooking up. And then, a lot of them are successful at it too, but then it's like, as soon as it's over, they're back to feeling that lonely self and doing it all over again. And, I'm guilty of it too. I think we've all done it. I've certainly have, like I said, in my life. But at the end of the day, what's going on here is that guys are using all these external things to avoid feeling and dealing with something that's going on inside of them. And it's usually something painful or traumatic. Because at the end of the day, addictions are a way for us to not feel a certain thing anymore. We want to focus our brains on something else. And it manifests in all different ways. The most classical ones obviously are the drinking, the drugs, that kind of thing. But like I said, it can come out in many different ways. And I want to share with you, first of all, my own experience with this, because I went through this myself too. Now, I mentioned on Instagram, I was a workaholic. And so what that means is whenever I would, when I was younger, like if I would, I grew up in quite a bumpy family. And so when something went down, my coping mechanism was to just go to my room and study. I could lose myself and forget everything else in studying. And then through studying, I would get good grades and that would make me feel good. That was the thing in my life where I could feel good about myself. But I also, when I got older, the working thing has continued throughout my whole life. But when I got older, I also started collecting things, and namely action figures, because I'm an 80s kid, so I was very into 80s toys and things like that as a kid. But as I became an adult and I had money, I rediscovered them and wanted to collect them. And before I knew it, I was spending so much time researching, searching down, buying, collecting, all sorts of stuff. I had so many figures and stuff from the 80s. Now, some people might say, well, dude, that's just a hobby. You're passionate about your hobby. And I agree, yes, it can be a hobby, and I was very passionate about it. But you have to look at the motivations behind your actions. And if I'm honest with myself, I was doing that to avoid feeling the pain that I had from growing up. And that's the big difference is between a hobby and sort of a coping mechanism, is that a hobby, it's something that you really enjoy, but you're not really using it to block something out. I knew, if I'm being very honest, I knew that I had gotten to a certain point in my life where things just spiraled down and relationships were going good, just a lot of things were not going well. And I realized that, wow, I just haven't been dealing with the issues that I have had because of the things I dealt with as a kid, and I needed to do those things. And so I realized that I was using collecting and buying and just focusing in on that as my coping mechanism. And I had to stop, running away from the pain and actually deal with it. And so that's exactly what I did. I came to a point where I just was like, boom, I hit the wall and I realized, okay, I'm gonna do something about this right now. And so that's what I did. I went to self-help groups, I joined 12-step programs, and I also worked with a coach. And through these things, I dedicated a solid year where I stopped everything else and I went straight to every single day just working on this for a whole solid year at least, before I really felt like I made progress. And let me just share this with you, because this is the crazy thing about what happens when you actually take the time and the initiative to work through this stuff, okay? If you're someone who does have something that you are addicted to or are compulsive with, I'm sure you know that feeling of just it constantly is on your mind. Well, when you go through a program and actually deal with your stuff, and you confront it, you deal with it, and you work through it, you get to a point where you actually do overcome it. And the thing that you were using to cope, like in my case, collecting or shopping and buying figures and things, when I finally got through the storm and dealt with stuff, that compulsion and that desire to buy things completely went away. It was like cold turkey overnight. Like I was like, ugh. I was actually kind of repulsed by it. I mean, I still thought those things were cool, but the thought of collecting and buying and spending my time focusing on it just became actually very repulsive. And as a matter of fact, I decided to sell off a lot of my collection. Now, I didn't sell everything because a lot of it was from when I was a kid and I wanted to save things for sentimental value. So I do have some things I did keep, but a lot of it I got rid of because I no longer needed that thing to use as an escape mechanism because I had dealt with my feelings. And after having dealt with the stuff that I dealt with when I was a kid, it just kind of dissipated and that compulsion went away. And that's the beauty of being accountable and actually confronting your shit. Because at the end of the day, all it is that you're avoiding dealing with something. You don't want to feel a pain. And this is why addictions are born, is because something has happened to you or to us that was very painful, and you never want to feel that again. You never want to even think about it, deal with it, go through those painful experiences again, so you use something else to keep your mind busy, okay? Now, if I'm gonna be let's play devil's advocate for a second. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you can channel that compulsive behavior into something good, you're actually gonna be really good at that thing. I've never had a substance issue. I've never been addicted to booze or drugs or anything like that. I was the workaholic type. And so if you want to look at it a certain way, it actually did help me because I got really good grades. I studied a lot of different things. So it did help me, but the motivation behind it was because of something very painful that I was dealing with. Now, if we look at the collecting toys, this too, it could be a good thing because a lot of those things were worth a lot of money, so it was like an investment. But the motivation behind it, yes, I was interested in it and it had a nostalgic appeal to me, but I was using it as a way to escape and run away from dealing with something that I should have dealt with. So if you do have, that's why that's why a lot of successful artists or musicians and all these very talented people a lot of times come from a traumatic background, and it's because they needed to escape to something, and so they focus so much attention on one thing. And this is the power of focus. So if you can, now that I'm past, I've gone through this, I've dealt with stuff, but I've still harnessed the ability to focus. And I remember what it feels like, and I can still use that feeling without having to cope with other things, and still use it to become successful at whatever it is I set my mind to. But this is the one benefit of having this type of problem, I guess, if you want to call it. Now, I do still think it's worth getting through because you can maintain that ability of being very focused even if you don't have that coping mechanism. And your life just becomes a lot easier. And what I used when I was writing on Instagram about this, the word that I used, I believe, was that you feel lighter. All the weight and the pressure and anxiety that's on your shoulders, it just lifts and you just feel like so different. Your posture, literally, you stand taller, your chest goes out, and you just feel so much lighter on your toes and you feel really good. Because when you have this addiction or this burden on your shoulders, your body physically starts to crunch up and bend over, and shoulders get hunched. And I can see it. That's why I've gotten to a point where I can tell right away if someone's got something going on just by looking at the way they hold themselves, their body, because it manifests itself physically if you have some sort of a pain or trauma. It's just the way that it is, and if you haven't dealt with it. So this is why when I coach the men that I coach, we deal with a lot of this stuff, because I want to get them out and figure out this stuff, because if they don't figure that out, then they'll just keep repeating this stuff, and the coaching, it's not worth it. So we dig deep and we find this stuff out, and then we go through exercises and things to get through it. And this is one of the benefits of working with somebody who knows, who's been through it, who knows how to deal with it, and can help you out of it. So I'm just trying to think if there's other things that I may be leaving out on this topic, because it is a very deep topic. But you know, being able to confront your feelings, it's not easy. I'm not gonna lie. And when I went through it for that year, you know, I journaled a lot. I went to groups 2 or 3 times a week. I read books. I did the workbooks. I did a lot of work. And, you know, it's something that I really recommend not doing alone. That's why I went to the self-help groups. That's why I went to 12-step programs, because you need to be held accountable, because this stuff is painful. And if you're doing it by yourself, you're gonna look for ways to get out of it. So you need to be held accountable, which is why I think working with a coach, and this is why, you know, the guys that come to me, why we make big strides, is because I'm holding them accountable. I'm being like, dude, you need to do this thing, because if you don't, you're not gonna grow and you're not gonna get past it. But I'm not saying you need to work with me, but I'm just saying you shouldn't do it alone. You should join a group or something like that you can get through it. If you're religious, going to church, using that as your strength can also be very helpful. I know in the 12-step programs I went through, having a higher power is a part of the program, and you have to believe that not everything is up to you, and that you have somebody or something looking out for you. So anyway, it's a very powerful thing, and once you get through it though, it's night and day. And like I said, when I got through it, everything that I used as a coping mechanism just went away, it vanished, and I just was like, why was I so into that thing? I couldn't even understand why. I was like, it became repulsive. I'm like, I just have no interest in this anymore. You know, I can look at it and think it's cool, but I don't feel that burning desire to collect things, or, you know, just go completely bananas over like I used to do. So anyway, this is something that I stress to many guys, is to deal with your shit and not use coping mechanisms. You know, this is a very tough thing to do, and so this requires you to pull from that inner masculine self and deal with it. So if you guys have questions, please ask them and I will answer them in the comments below. If you want to work one-on-one with me to deal with something like this, I'd be happy to work with you, and I'll leave the links below for coaching. You can send me a message if you have questions about it. But other than that, I think this is a very powerful thing. If you have questions, or if you want me to maybe answer something in another video, also leave a comment down below and I'll do so. Other than that, if you are going through this stuff right now, I wish you the best of luck and getting through it, because once you do, you will feel a lot better. So anyway, cheers guys. We will see you in the next one.